This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Palmer. It's in Turlock today in the Central Valley of California. We are joined by Adam Christianson. He is the sheriff for Stanislaus County. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a very busy few years when you think about incarceration practices, which is what the sheriff handles, of course, at the county level. Let's go back a few years to what we know as AB 109. Prison realignment, which is still in force today, to deal with a Supreme Court order out of Washington, D.C. There was a change in how folks were incarcerated based upon their status, what their crime was. How did Stanislaus handle that?
Well, we were proactive in our approach because we've got great relationships with everybody, and we brought all the stakeholders together. We knew it was coming, so we prepared for that. But there were some challenges. We operate under a federal consent decree, so we have jail bed capacities just like everybody else. I was certainly one of the biggest vocal critics against public safety realignment, was concerned about the impacts to the safety of our communities and quality of life issues.
Well, here's the question. You were not alone in your opposition.
I was not alone.
Yeah, the challenge became, though, you had a U.S. Supreme Court order.
Correct.
Telling the governor of the state you must decrease the size of your prison population by tens of thousands. And so I would, argue Governor Brown, he was handcuffed.
He was.
And so, what could have been done? I mean, look, admittedly, the state's problems got pushed down to the counties.
Yes.
So what was the answer?
Along with the costs associated with providing care, because all of the lawsuits that the state has suffered over the years with respect to conditions of confinement, inmate mental health care, all of that followed that demographic to local control. But you're absolutely right. The governor had no choice. A lot of people blame the governor, and it's not his fault.
Right.
The United States Supreme Court said, "Let my people go."
Right. Well stated.
So
good metaphor.
But in that issue, we all needed to work together to prepare for that. So we have a very strong relationship with probation.
Right.
We have a very strong relationship with our district attorney and the courts and the community-based organizations that we would be engaging to provide services to this specific population, who are now individuals on what's called post-release community supervision.
It was the lower level offenders, arguably. But when you look at the 58 counties, as I understand it, Stanislaus County actually was not ground zero for some of the challenges of AB 109.
Because we were already ahead of the curve. We were already running correctional facilities that met all of the standards and mandates.
You had your own order.
We did. We weren't subject to any litigation. We had a good inmate medical health care provider. We worked very closely with our public health officer, Dr. Walker. So we were prepared for what was coming because of, in a word, relationships.
So let's talk about how you have managed the prison cap set by your federal court order with AB 109, which is setting more prisoners down. A lot of people throw out this term early release, and I think it's somewhat of an overstatement. I can use it, and I got to be careful about how I use that term.
Sure.
So to keep in line with the court order and with realignment, what have you done so your capacity doesn't break?
Well, to give you a little lead up,
Please.
Prior to realignment, we operated under a federal consent decree.
Right, as you just said. Right.
Based on design capacity, we could not exceed 1,492 beds.
To be specific.
We knew that realignment was going to increase our capacity.
Right.
And so really what happened was we implemented relief factors. So prior to realignment, we always had an early release program. We use electronic monitoring. We use home detention.
So is that release? See, that's
It is not a release.
So it's not technically. That's the key that our viewers need to understand.
If you get diverted to a alternative to incarceration, to the work program. For example, I have 4 roadside work crews out every day picking up trash and garbage throughout Stanislaus County. So if you want to commit crimes and you need a little extra work, we're happy to accommodate you. But really what it is, it's a relief factor. So we're not releasing anybody. They're still in our custody, but our programs are an extension of custody.
And I think our viewers, Californians, need to understand that because, language matters.
Absolutely.
And in this case, there still is some form of supervision.
Now keep in mind, absolutely there's a form of supervision. And again, right now, split sentencing under realignment provides an opportunity for additional supervision. But these are not just work programs.
Right.
These are educational, vocational, and rehabilitative program opportunities that also exist. So there's a wide variety of tools we can use to help criminal offenders outside of actually sitting inside the jail.
Let's talk about another wrinkle. In November, the voters passed Prop 47, which really kind of turned the whole system on its head, because what it then did is those lower level offenders that were being sent to county, they were, under the rules of Prop 47, weren't going to be sent anywhere, because certain crimes, drug possession offenses and some others, were being reclassified not as felonies or wobblers as we know it, but misdemeanors.
Correct.
And so one could argue that may have helped the pressure on the county prison population, county jail population. Did it?
It did, short term.
Okay.
I believe that long term you'll see our average daily population go back up. But keep in mind that wrinkles are really just challenges in public safety. You have to learn to be adaptable and flexible. And so while the voters decided here in California that this was what they wanted, it's our obligation, duty, and responsibility to implement the will of the people.
So let's talk about what the voters said, because the campaign really was focused on drug possession. There are some wrinkles, as we described. Gun possession falls under it, and that's causing some angst. And date rape drugs is falling it, that's causing some angst. But the voters were looking at, the marijuana possessions, the cocaine possessions for personal use.
Okay, but this is not about simple possession.
Continue.
Okay, addiction is an epidemic.
Please.
Substance abuse goes hand in hand with mental illness.
Right.
How many times have we seen in our nation crisis and tragedy that results in someone being identified as mentally ill?
Right.
Okay, this is a much bigger issue than simple possession, because addiction can be found in domestic violence, addiction can be found in property crime, addiction can be found in serious and violent crime.
And that becomes the question.
It's not just an issue of simple possession.
And that becomes the question, because as I understand it, what prosecutors would often do in a pre-Prop 47 world is, for those possession offenses, they were wobblers. They could be a felony or they could be a misdemeanor. And they would say to the defendant, well, look, if you choose to go into a drug program, if you choose to go to drug court, we'll classify it as a misdemeanor. But then they get that programming. Well, now it's not a wobbler, it's automatically a misdemeanor.
Okay. But under your scenario, or prior to Prop 47, there was some accountability and consequence in the system. There was an incentive to successfully complete the program and rehabilitate.
And now there's not.
Now you've stripped all that away.
So what can you do? Because like you said, it's the will of the people. You work with the will of the people. Is there a way, or does Prop 47 in your mind need a fix?
Well, I think that Prop 47 was, again, disingenuously marketed to the voters. Anytime you look at something that says safe streets and safe schools, naturally the people are going to gravitate toward that without reading the fine print. The unintended consequences of Prop 47 will result in things like increased property crime, and it'll fuel addiction when we're really trying to break cycles of addiction and violence. So, is it an issue of, is it going to be chaos, and are we going to see out of control crime rates? No.
Right.
It just makes our job a little harder with respect to helping people, because again, if there's no incentive to be successful, you're not going to be able to keep them in out of custody programming.
So what are you doing?
Our very best.
Because
we've engaged even more with community-based organizations, and there are a variety. Service, civic, charitable, faith-based business, education, agriculture. There's a wide variety of people in our community that are willing to help. And so we keep doing our best to identify and get them into programs.
He is Adam Christianson. He is the sheriff for Stanislaus County. I'm in Turlock. This is Local Edition.